everyone, my name is Sharon Platt. I am one of the science tutors at the Student Success Commons, and in this video I would like to go over the heart anatomy. So most of you probably know already that the heart has 4 chambers, and the top 2 are called atria, atrium singular, atria plural. The bottom 2 are called ventricles. So this is the right side of the heart. I know on video sometimes it's hard to tell, but I am holding this as if this is right side of my body, left side of my body. So this is the right side of the heart. So this is the right atrium, the right ventricle, the left atrium, the left ventricle. All right. And on the front of the heart, we have these little things here, these little flaps of tissue here. These are called the auricles, A-U-R-I-C-L-E, just like the outer ear. They look, I suppose if you looked really sideways at it, you could see an ear out of that. But this is the auricle of the right ventricle, and this is the auricle of the left ventricle. All right, then let's look at the valves. We have 4 valves in the heart. We have 2 atrioventricular valves, because they are in between the atria and the ventricles, atrioventricular valves. And their names, this one is the tricuspid valve, because it has 3 cusps that come together and open to work the valve. Tricuspid valve is in the right side, and the bicuspid valve is in the left side, and that's because it only has 2 cusps that come together to work that valve. There's a couple ways to remember this. One is that the word tri has an R in it, and the tricuspid valve is on the right side of the heart, which leaves the bicuspid valve on the left side of the heart. The other is a little phrase a teacher taught us, that you try before you buy. Try something before you buy it. So try comes before buy. The bicuspid valve is also known as the mitral valve, because if you were to tip it upside down, it would look like those little mitral hats. So that's where it gets that name as well. It goes by both names. So tricuspid valve is an atrioventricular valve, bicuspid valve is an atrioventricular valve. The other 2 valves are semilunar valves, and they function a little differently, and they do kind of look like half moons or third of moons there, don't they? So semilunar valves, this is the pulmonary valve because it goes up into the pulmonary trunk, lets blood up into the pulmonary trunk, which is the pulmonary artery. Or it actually, back here it's the pulmonary artery, but that's the pulmonary trunk. And so that's a semilunar valve, we call it the pulmonary valve. Over here is the aortic valve, semilunar aortic valve. And that is the 4 valves. Then we have the major blood vessels here. This is the aorta, so it comes straight up out of the heart. This goes out to the body, taking oxygenated blood to the body. And this is the arch, the aortic arch. The whole thing's the aorta. And, okay, I'm going to sidetrack myself. There's one very common misconception that you need to get rid of right now, and that is that red is arteries and blue is veins. That is only 50% true. In the systemic, in our body system, it is true. When it goes to the lungs, it is the opposite. So it's easier just to throw the whole thing out and say oxygenated blood, deoxygenated blood. And arteries go away from the heart, veins come back to the heart. Those are the 2 keys, all right? Oxygenated, deoxygenated, arteries go away, veins come back too. All right, and then this here is the vena cava. This is the superior vena cava, brings blood from the body, deoxygenated blood from the body to the heart. This is the inferior vena cava. The superior vena cava brings back blood from everything above the diaphragm. Inferior vena cava brings back blood everywhere below the diaphragm, back to the heart. And the small, you see the large vena cava opening there, and then there's a small red dot there. That is bringing blood from the coronary sinus into the right atrium. That is from the coronary blood vessels themselves, the blood vessels that supply blood to the heart. That is the vein. The coronary sinus is the vein that brings that back to the heart. All right, so we have our vena cava, our aorta. We already talked about this is the pulmonary trunk. Back here turns into two pulmonary arteries. One goes to each lung. And remember, this is deoxygenated blood going out to the lungs, therefore it's blue. And then we have our four pulmonary veins coming back from the lungs, oxygenated blood because it got oxygenated in the lungs. So there's our four pulmonary veins, pulmonary artery, pulmonary veins. All right. Now we need to know what these are on top of the aorta. So blood vessels take off from the aorta. The aorta goes all the way down through our abdomen. So it's a very long, very big blood vessel. The very first one to come off is the one that supplies the coronary arteries, the blood vessels that supply the heart itself. All right, and that is the very first artery to come off the aorta and supply the heart itself. And then we have this one up here is the, let me double check, the brachiocephalic trunk. Takes blood, brachio, arms, trunk, cephalic head, right? So it supplies the arms and the head. And then this one is called the left common carotid. Pretty much goes straight up. It's going straight up into your head, taking blood up into your brain. Left carotid artery. And this is the left subclavian artery, which takes blood to your arms. All right, so we have the brachiocephalic trunk, left common carotid artery, and left subclavian artery. And those are all we can see on the heart. The rest we have to have a different model to see. So let's go to the blood vessels of the heart itself, and then we'll go back in and look at some more things inside the heart. So this one here, it's on the right side of the heart, right? So it's going to be called the right coronary artery, and it brings blood out to the right side of the heart. And then if we turn this way, this artery that comes off the right coronary artery is called the marginal artery. It's kind of on the side there, right near the inferior vena cava. All right. And then back here, we have the posterior interventricular artery. Okay, if you look at the front, it's in between the two arteries, but this is the posterior interventricular. It's in between the two ventricles there. Posterior interventricular artery. And then if we come back over here, we have a left coronary artery that we really can't see on this model, but it's coming from here. All right, remember this supplies all those coronary arteries. So it's coming from there and coming out to here, and right about where we can start to see it, it splits. And this one around here is called the circumflex artery because it kind of does a circumflex there, right? Goes around the heart. And this one is called the anterior interventricular artery, or the left anterior descending artery, but we'll stick with anterior interventricular artery. Remember we had a posterior interventricular artery? Here we have an anterior interventricular artery. And this one supplies the left ventricle. This one is what we call the widowmaker. If this one does not work, your left ventricle is the one that takes blood out through the aorta and out to the body, including your brain. And so if this one is damaged and your brain does not get enough blood, that's when we get into big trouble. If some of these other arteries go bad, we have a little longer because our brain still has some has energy. All right. Now let's take a look at a few other things inside the heart, and then we'll take a look at the book for a few things that are not on this model. So this is called the myocardium. This is the actual heart muscle. It's the wall of the heart, the myocardium, all along here, all around. All right. And let's see where else I'm missing something. Okay, the chordae tendineae are these little threads, and we'll look at this in the book too, but these little threads that hold the arterioventricular valves into the ventricle so that it doesn't fly out and go somewhere else. All right, we kind of call these heartstrings, chordae tendineae. And they are these little cords that hold that in. And I think the rest of these we have to go to the book to look at. Just trying to make sure I don't forget anything. So in here, here's the chordae tendineae. You can see them a little better in here. And definitely for these valves, take a look at videos online of them actually working. It's absolutely fascinating. They're beautiful. How they work. But there's our chordae tendineae. And then we have some pectinate muscles, which are up. See all those little bumps there? Those are the pectinate muscles. And then we have some papillary muscles, which I have forgotten where those are. Oh, these are the ones down at the bottom of the chordae tendineae. They're holding the chordae tendineae there. Those are papillary muscles. And then we have some trabeculae carneae, and that is these little ridges in the heart. See all those little ridges all over in here? Those are the trabeculae carneae. All right. And then there's a couple more things. There are two things that in a fetus are very different from an adult. One of those is the foramen ovale, and I believe that is, okay, foramen ovalis is right there. In a fetus, that is an open hole. In an adult, it is closed. It closes shortly after birth, I believe. So that is one thing that is different. In the fetus, it's the foramen ovale. In an adult, it's the fossa ovalis. And the other one is this little, there it is, ligamentum arteriosum. That's in an adult. It holds these two together, the aorta and the pulmonary trunk. That's in the adult. And in an infant, it is the ductus arteriosus. And I believe it is also a hole of some kind, but it is different in an infant. And on here, where is that? I believe that is right here, that little bump there. So that is the heart.